Revealed. The sinister secrets of a haunted elevator, my most terrifying repair experience yet. Lisa had heard the stories, of course whispers about the crumbling apartment building on the edge of the city rumored to be haunted. But need trumped fear and she needed cash. Desperation dragged her into the depths of that eerie structure. Its peeling paint and flickering lights already sending chills down her spine. Little did she know, that night, with storm clouds gathering outside, her world would spiral into unimaginable terror. While working on the elevator, a rusted hunk of metal that creaked and groaned under her hands, Lisa began to hear faint voices. At first, they seemed like the echoes of her exhaustion. But as she fiddled nervously with the wiring, the whispers sharpened, turning personal. They spoke of fears she thought she'd buried. The mounting bills, Jamie's after-school program, and the loneliness that clung to her like a shadow. Her heart raced. Shadows flickered through the broken light, and she paused, pulse thrumming in her ears. She turned to look at the old elevator door, a sickening knot tightening in her stomach. This was insane, right? But then she glanced at the wall and saw it her own reflection. But Jamie's innocent face distorted in the glass, eyes wide with inexplicable fear. "Mom!" His voice echoed, pulling Lisa into a panic. Was this the fatigue playing tricks on her? What was real? She stepped back, breathing heavily. Just a bad dream, she thought desperately. But every moment in that rickety cage felt more like a curse than a blessing. The air was thick, making her throat dry and her hands tremble. Was she losing her mind? The landlord's dismissive chuckle flashed through her mind when she spoke of the whispers. "You should get more rest," he said. But she could feel something lurking in the dark corners of that building, a sinister truth. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With renewed determination fueled by fears and instinct, she couldn't shake the nagging thought of the old well rumored to be beneath the building, cursed, they said, by the grudges of long-gone families. She had to know. Was there a connection to the cries that haunted her nights? With each clong of the elevator's malfunction, Lisa felt like she was unlocking doors to a darkness she didn't understand. That night, she could barely keep wrenching on the rusted gears. Storms raged outside, thunder echoing like the voices closing in on her sanity. Then, a child's voice broke through the chaos, a haunting plea for help. It chilled her to the bone, calling her deeper into the darkness. "Mom!" it begged, and Lisa froze, uncertainty clawing at her. Could it be Jamie? Did she dare approach that creaking door? Her heart hammered. One misstep could lead her to her worst nightmare. The building wanted something from her. Just what was the question swirling in shadows she could no longer ignore? Lisa's heart stopped, frozen in time as if the world outside ceased to exist. The soft echo of her name lingered in the air, but it twisted her stomach into knots. "Mom!" Again, that piercing call tugged at her, luring her closer to the elevator door. Sweat trickled down her back, the oppressive heat mixed with the chaos of the storm howling outside. With shaking hands, she wiped her forehead, her breath coming in short gasps. Hadn't she heard enough ghost stories? Couldn't she just walk away? Yet, the weight of maternal instinct pulled her forward, her body acting before her mind could protest. She stumbled toward the door, each step heavier than the last as she neared. She could feel the air grow colder, a palpable chill wrapping around her like a shroud. The elevator itself seemed to pulse with life, a rhythmic throbbing that matched her racing heart. Shadows of old memories danced in front of her, flickers of laughter, joy. But they were drowned out by the ominous sound of water dripping, one droplet at a time, echoing like a metronome counting down to something terrible. "Mom!" The voice became frantic now, desperate. Lisa pressed herself against the cool metal of the door, her ear brushing against it. Was it coming from inside? The thought sent chills racing down her spine. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "I'm coming, Jamie," she shouted, though her voice trembled. With a deep, shuddering exhale, she yanked the door open, expecting to find nothing but darkness. Instead, a cold wind rushed out, sending her stumbling back. The shadows within the shaft writhed, pulling at her, inviting her down like a siren's call. "Jump," a voice whispered, one that did not come from her son. "Jump and follow." Lisa hesitated. The elevator was empty, but the darkness seemed alive, coiling around her legs, urging her to step inside. "Stop it! Stop it!" she shouted, trying to dislodge the hold it had on her mind. She stumbled back from the abyss of the elevator shaft where the echo of a child's sobs twisted into wicked laughter. Then, amid the chaos, she remembered the rumor, the well beneath the building. What if that was where it led? A sinking dread gripped her insides. If she followed this haunting song, what would she find? The thought tore at her sanity. Jamie's voice morphed into laughter, then into a primal scream that sent her reeling. The elevator lurched violently, shaking as if it were alive. She could feel the building's breath, hot and foul, coming from the depths of the shaft, promising horrors that bypassed simple fears. Desperation clawed at her, and she couldn't contain her emotions any longer. "You're not getting my son." Taking a deep breath, driven by a sudden burst of bravery, Lisa slid into the open elevator. It was pitch black. Her hands fumbled at the controls, but they were useless. How could she save Jamie if darkness swallowed her whole? And then she heard it. A soft, chilling whisper resonating in the hollow space. "He has already gone." Join him. Terror gripped her soul. The laughter now seemed to echo from below, mingling with the storm outside. The feeling of foreboding consumed her. What if she was too late? With a sudden rush, she pressed every button in rapid succession, what felt like a last act of defiance as the elevator jolted backward. Her heartbeat pounded like a drum roll. The walls seemed to close in. The lights flickered, then went out completely, plunging her into abyssal blackness as she plummeted downward. The last thought that crossed her mind before the darkness swallowed her whole was a resounding echo of her own voice. What did I just unleash? The fear cut deep, where unexpected revelations lay in wait. What if Jamie was tied to this cursed well, forever bound to this nightmare? And in that darkness, Lisa could already hear a responsive voice, sweet and soft, whispering her name, "Mom." As she fell, the darkness tightened around Lisa. Time lost meaning. The weight of fear pressed down on her, suffocating. The sensation was visceral, like being submerged underwater, the air itself seeming to flee just as she reached for it. Then suddenly, the elevator jolted to a halt. Her body slammed to the cold, hard floor. Pain shot through her as she laid there, gasping, the echoes of her fall reverberating in the confined space. The whispering voice from moments before now seemed to linger and multiply, each repetition weaving itself into her thoughts like a sick melody. "Mom, you came." Jamie's voice curled around her, sweet yet tainted with something sinister. She scrambled to her feet, heart pounding, eyes straining against the blackness that surrounded her. "Jamie, where are you?" Silence. The only sound was the quiet drippage of water somewhere nearby, mimicking her heartbeat, slow, steady, but growing impossibly louder. Cautiously, she moved forward, arms extended in front of her, fingertips grazing the cold metal walls of the elevator. It felt alive, writhing beneath her touch, and she jerked her hand back, staring into the void. The shadows held their breath, waiting. "Please, Mom. I'm scared." The tone twisted, almost mocking. It made her stomach churn. "Jamie, it's okay. I'm here." Desperation tinged her words, the darkness growing heavy around her. She had to push through. It was just shadows, she told herself, just phantoms playing tricks. But deep down, dread coiled tighter, embedding itself in her core. Sudden light flickered above, illuminating a small portion of the steel elevator. Lisa squinted, and in that flickering glow, she spotted something on the ground, an old, rusted key. It caught the light, reflecting like eyes in the dark, watching her. Her heart raced again. Could this be it? Could this unlock something? Her breath quickened as she reached down. The moment her fingers closed around the cold metal, a rush of memories struck her, a vision of Jamie playing beside an old, decrepit well, laughter echoing above the sound of gently swirling water below. Then the light flickered out. "Mom, you shouldn't have come." Panic exploded in her chest. "What do you mean?" She shouted into the dark, her voice shrill and trembling. "Where's Jamie?" A low, growling laugh reverberated through the elevator, sending shivers racing down her spine. "He.'s playing. You're just in time to join." "No!" she screamed, a wild fury igniting within her. She turned, struck the wall in anger, but the metal felt oddly warm, pulsing under her blows as if the building itself responded to her rage. "Join us." The voice slithered through the air, chilling her to the bone. Suddenly, the elevator began to shake violently once again, more powerful than before. What was happening? It felt like she was being sucked deeper, drawn into something horrible, something ancient lurking within the very bones of the building. As the vertical descent started again, the laughter filled her ears, drowning out her resolve. With the key tightly in her grasp, Lisa made a choice, the only choice. She couldn't wait for Jamie to be found. She had to seek him out, even if it meant facing whatever horrors lay beneath this cursed structure. As the spiral of lights flashed around her, the last shred of her hope dimmed. Would this key unlock the truth? Or was it just another cruel trick? Her surroundings blurred into an ominous swath of shadows, a predatory darkness stalking her every move. "Where are you, Jamie?" she whispered, her voice barely a breath as the elevator plummeted once more. And just as the cold laughter reached a fever pitch, she felt it, a hand on her shoulder, small and clammy. The darkness whispered, "You'll find him, but what you discover next will change everything." The hand lingered for a heartbeat before vanishing into the gloom. Lisa spun around, heart hammering, breath hitching in her throat. "Jamie!" she called out again, her voice weak and trembling. The elevator shook as if a storm was brewing beneath her feet, the steel no longer a shelter but a cage. The whispers grew louder, enveloping her, taunting her, echoing her fears back to her. "You shouldn't have come, you shouldn't have come," and in their twisted syllables, she could almost hear hints of laughter, cruel and mocking, wrapping around her like a shroud. A sliver of light flickered faintly above, shifting rapidly, revealing a small, stained monitor on the wall. The images were distorted at first, glitches and shadows darting across the screen. But then she saw it, a flicker of a child, Jamie, his face concerned, wide eyes staring back at her. The image froze for a moment, the monitor buzzing ominously. "Mom! Help me!" The message seemed to pull at her, the urgency palpable. The graphics dissolved into static, and Lisa stumbled back against the wall, clutching the key like a lifeline. What was happening to her child? Where was he? A low growling sound rose again, and the elevator began to sway. Panic coursed through her veins like ice. "I'm coming," she shouted, even as doubt gnawed at her resolve. She had to act, had to find a way out of this nightmare. The elevator plunged deeper, and she could feel the cold air seep in, each breath a struggle. As the shadows enveloped her once more, a chilling thought struck her. What if Jamie was no longer the innocent child she remembered? What if he was lost to the darkness, forever changed? "No!" she yelled, shaking her head to dispel the thought. Her fingers tightened around the key as memories rush in a sunny moment in the park, Jamie's laugh echoing like a melody. She envisioned him there, a bright spirit, untouched by the terror that surrounded her now. "Mom, why don't you come play?" The voice came from nowhere and everywhere at once, and her heart stuttered. Despair settled into her bones, the weight of it heavy and dark. Suddenly, the sound of grating metal jolted her from her spiraling thoughts. The elevator lurched violently, and the lights above flickered, casting unsettling shadows that danced on the walls. With each flicker, she could swear she saw more shapes in the corners of her vision, shadowy figures that lingered just out of reach. With renewed determination, she gripped the key and slammed it into an unseen lock in the wall. It slid in, warm and pulsating under her touch. The shadows writhed around her, as if enraged by her defiance. "Unlock the truth," a voice hissed, so close, sending chills racing down her spine. The key turned, and the sound echoed like a gunshot, startling in the suffocating silence. The metal groaned softly, teasing the unknown. "Mom, please hurry." Jamie's voice came again, filled with desperation, pulling at her heart. But before she could react, the elevator door shuddered open, revealing an inky black hallway that stretched infinitely before her. Coldness wafted from the abyss, beckoning her forward. The ground looked slick, almost alive, glimmering faintly as if it were hungry for her to cross. With a trembling breath, she took a step into the dark. Shadows swirled around her in an eternal dance, whispering secrets that wrapped around her throat like a noose. "Welcome to the game," the voice twirled around her, intoxicating and malicious. "Are you ready to lose it all?" The laughter burst forth again, echoing down the corridor, melding with her heartbeat. Would she find Jamie? Or would she lose herself forever? The darkness stretched before her like an insatiable maw, and she realized this was only the beginning. What awaited her deeper in the shadows would unravel everything. With each step, she felt the weight of the horrors pulling her in. Would she still be able to save her son? Or was she racing towards her own demise? And then, from the depths of silence, a new voice emerged. "Lisa, it's not just about Jamie. It's about us all." The air thickened as Lisa stepped into the dark corridor, her heart a wild drum against her ribs. The shadows whispered, curling around her like living tendrils, their cold breaths nipping at her resolve. She pressed forward, her footsteps echoing ominously on the slick floor, each sound swallowed by the consuming darkness. "Mom, please," Jamie's voice, sweet yet tinged with an edge of something dark, sent shivers skittering down her spine. Felt wrong. Hadn't he once been innocent? The thought slipped through her mind like a phantom. The walls closed in, pulsating with the whispers, the taunts growing louder. You shouldn't have come," they seemed to mock her frantic heart, threatening to smother her. She clutched the key tighter, its warmth a fading comfort. If only she could turn it again, unlock whatever horror threatened to spill into her world. Suddenly, ahead in the blackness, a flicker of light flared to life. A match struck against the void. Lisa squinted, her anxiety mingling with curiosity. The flicker expanded, revealing a grotesque mural sprawled along the wall. It depicted sprawling shapes, anguished faces twisted in silent screams, and in the center a family, their eyes hollow, staring right at her. A chill bit harder at her skin. "This can't be real," she gasped. The painted figures seemed alive, shifting with the shadows, their mouths moving silently as if pleading for her to turn back. But she couldn't. Jamie was ahead, lost in the darkness that felt alive with dread. With her resolve faltering yet again, each step became a struggle. "Mom!" The urgency in his voice sharpened, drawing her deeper, farther from her safety into a world that wanted to consume her. "Mom!" the voice echoed, growing distorted, tainted by the shadows. It wrapped around her mind, infusing panic with dread. "Jamie!" she screamed, lungs burning. Just as the darkness felt insurmountable, the corridor burst into a pool of pale light. A door loomed at the end, ancient and splintered. The urge to run surged through her, reckless and wild. Just as she reached the door, a pressure built in her chest, a sensation of being watched. She turned, dread coiling in her gut. The shadows slithered closer, coalescing into grotesque forms that seeped from the walls. They were wrong, their features blending together, the tormented souls of those who had been here before. Panic seized her throat. "Leave her be." A voice, a sinister, penetrating hiss rose from the horde as they advanced. Lisa staggered back, her breath quickening. Terrifying clarity sliced through her mind. This was not just about Jamie. It was about her too. About the choices she made, the people she left behind. "Run." The command throbbed inside her, and she lunged toward the door, heart racing, nails tearing at her palm. The whispers grew frenetic, clawing at her sanity. Suddenly, the door swung wide open, revealing a room bathed in flickering brightness. But it wasn't salvation. Hairpin turns led deeper into a maze she'd never escape, and she could hear Jamie's pleading echoing inside her head. "Mom, hurry," he begged, lost but still there. But as she stood on the threshold, a massive figure loomed behind her, blocking the exit. It had no face, but she felt its breath hot and rancid, swirling around her like a storm cloud. "What are you willing to sacrifice?" It rumbled, deeper than her worst fears, sending a wave of despair crashing into her chest. Lisa was paralyzed, realization dawning like a black cloud. This was the beginning of a greater struggle, one that would demand everything she was. With a battle cry, she dared to move, but as she crossed into the room, the shadows surged behind her. And in that moment, she understood. She wasn't just searching for Jamie anymore, she was fighting for her very soul. And in a heartbeat, her world plunged into darkness once more. Will she conquer the terror that awaits, or will the shadows claim her in the end? The instant Lisa crossed into the room, the air shifted. Tendrils of darkness writhed like angry serpents, reaching out to snatch her back into the embrace of the corridor she had just escaped. The light flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. Panic surged through her, every ounce of her being screaming to run, to hide, but Jamie's voice anchored her. "Mom, you have to find me." The urgency was raw, throbbing in the air like a heartbeat. She turned toward the path forged in chaos ahead, her mind racing. The room was a nightmarish labyrinth, walls lined with peeling wallpaper that whispered secrets in a forgotten tongue. Fraying carpet clung to her feet as if trying to trap her. Direction was meaningless, and her heart pounded, a relentless drumbeat that echoed through the oppressiveness of the space. "Jamie," she called, her voice desperate, a plea that dissipated in the stifling silence. A rustle to her left made her freeze. Eyes wide, she squinted into the murky gloom, spotting movement, a shadow flitting just out of sight. She stepped forward, but the shadows collided, merging into a horrific shape that lunged at her. The darkness swelled and screamed, echoing her own agony. "No," she shouted, stumbling backwards. The sound of her voice turned into a desperate sob as she turned and dashed deeper into the maze. Each twist and turn left her breathless, and the oppressive weight of the shadows pressed ever closer. "Mom, please." The words were a caress, tender yet chilling. They were woven with fear, a melody of sorrow that tethered her heart to Jamie. She could feel the truth setting in. Her baby was trapped in this horror, just as she was. Lisa pressed on, her instincts blaring warnings. Room after room opened up, but they were all the same. Distorted reflections of her own horror, visions of twisted family portraits hanging crooked on the walls, hollow eyes that seemed to follow her every movement. She ducked her head and ran past them, unable to linger on the faces they held, each a haunting reminder of what she might lose. Suddenly, the ground beneath her shook, and an icy wind howled through the corridor. It was a voice, a long, low wail of despair that rattled her bones. "No, no." The sound clawed at her sanity, and she raced forward, propelled by terror and love. Ahead, a door stood ajar, light spilling from the cracks like fingers beckoning her. She burst through, heart surging with hope, but her breath caught when she realized what lay within a room filled with mirrors. Each reflected her pale, frantic face, twisting it into grotesque caricatures of fear. "Do you see?" a voice whispered from behind her. Lisa froze. A figure emerged from the reflection, a version of herself cloaked in darkness, eyes gleaming with wickedness. "It's all your fault. You let him get lost." "No," Lisa screamed, covering her ears, but the voice burrowed deeper, an unyielding echo of guilt. "You chose to forget, to escape." The dark version of herself moved closer, and with each step, the reflections morphed. Jamie appeared, but he wasn't the same. His face was stripped of innocence, twisted in rage. "You abandoned me." "No, I'm here," she cried out, drowning in sorrow and anger. Lisa's knees weakened as guilt threatened to pull her under as the darkness pressed in. Pulling her toward the mirrors, Lisa felt her resolve shatter. Jamie's voice was fading, lost in the cacophony of shadows. But then, A flicker ignited in her chest a tiny flame of determination. She wasn't done fighting. "Jamie, I'm coming," she bellowed, forcing her way forward. With a surge of strength, Lisa lunged at the nearest reflection, ready to fight, ready to reclaim her son. The moment her hand connected with the glass, the world spun violently around her. Just before everything went black, a glimmer of Jamie's face flashed, fragile, hopeful, and waiting. Would she break through the glass and rescue him, or would she shatter along with the reflections? The shadows gathered tighter, their laughter echoing wildly, ready to claim yet another soul. The world swirled, a cacophony of screams and shadows, and then silence. Unfathomable darkness enveloped Lisa, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. She felt weightless, as though drifting through deep water, her breath quickening with a growing sense of dread. It was not the familiar warmth of the corridor that greeted her, but an icy chill that whispered of despair. Just as panic began to bubble within her, the darkness started to dissolve, peeling back layer by layer. Light crept in, revealing a stark, sterile room. The walls were gray, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Lisa was on the floor, her body trembling, eyes wide open. She blinked, disoriented. No mirrors, no shadows, just an elevator. She struggled to her feet, the metallic taste of fear still sharp in her mouth. Had it all been a dream? But the echoing call of her son, Jamie, reverberated in her mind. No, it couldn't have just been a dream. She wasn't free yet. "Mom?" The voice floated softly, thin as a whisper but unmistakable. It was Jamie, desperate and lost. She jolted, the sound igniting her heart. "Mom, please, help me." Lisa rushed to the elevator panel, her fingers pressed against the buttons, frantic and trembling. "Where are you, Jamie?" she gasped, pressing the emergency call button. But it made no sound, no response apart from the dull hum of the elevator machinery. The sharp buzz of electricity surrounded her, and flashing lights flickered across the panel mockingly. "Mom!" The voice was louder now, an amalgam of hope and dread, blending into something twisted. She turned around, searching, scanning the small space for signs of her child. Nothing. Just herself and the lingering sensation of cold, creeping shadows at the edges of her vision. "Jamie, can you hear me?" Her voice cracked, filled with desperation. Nothing but silence met her ears. She bolted to the doors, pounding against them, willing them to open. "I want to leave you." The lights dimmed, and for a moment, the refrigerated air thickened, weighing her down. The elevator jolted suddenly, causing her to stumble back, her heart racing wildly as a low groan echoed within the walls. Panic rushed back in. Was this it? Was this how they would trap her forever? "Mom, I'm scared." Another cry from Jamie. The sound pierced through her like a dagger. "Hold on, Jamie. I'm coming," Lisa shouted, shaking as she turned toward the control panel again. This time her hands flew over the buttons, smashing them, hitting them in a frenzied rhythm. Sweat dripped down her brow as the elevator started to shudder violently, jerking her body. Her mind raced. What would she have to do to escape? Then the lights flickered once more, plunging her into darkness. Fear wrapped around her throat, tightening with every erratic motion of the elevator. She could hear the mechanical clangs of gears grinding, then the unmistakable sound of a child weeping. "Jamie, where are you?" Tears flowed down her cheeks, hot and desperate. She closed her eyes, focusing on her son's cries, willing him to manifest. The grasp of the shadows seeped back through the seams of her mind, clawing at her sanity. "Without me, you're nothing. Lisa, the darkness is your only truth." The sinister whisper echoed ominously, a voice she recognized all too well. The dark figure from the mirrors, still lurking in the shadows of her mind. "No!" she screamed, her fists clenched at her sides. "I won't let you take him." With a sudden surge of determination, she punched the emergency button one last time, her spirit roaring to push through the terror. The elevator screeched, and the doors rattled slightly. She felt her heart leap. "Jamie, I'm almost there. Suddenly, the lights returned with a blinding flash, and the doors began to open slowly, inching apart with an agonizing creak. Beyond the threshold, Lisa caught a glimpse of another room, a dark phantasmagoria swirling with obscure forms, pulsing and writhing. "Mom?" The voice called again, echoing closer now, blended with a sound that chilled her to the bone. As Lisa stepped forward into the unknown, a sinking realization settled in her stomach. What if this was not the end? What if it was just the beginning of something more sinister? The shadows swept in, pooling at her feet, ready for another chance, prepared to drag her down once more. "Jamie?" she whispered, taking a step into the nightmarish realm. What awaited her on the other side? Would she find Jamie? Or would she discover a horror even darker than before? The door behind her thudded shut, sealing her fate. The darkness consumed her. As Lisa stepped into the new room, the light flickered erratically, revealing twisted shapes and forms contorting against the walls like wraiths. She stood frozen, breath caught in her throat. The air was thick with a sense of impending doom, and the echo of her son's voice pulled at her heart like an iron chain. Jamie was close. "Mom!" His voice was clearer now, echoing in uneven loops, but it was mingled with something else. Low, guttural noises broke the air, a sound that sent icy fingers crawling down her spine. It wasn't just Jamie she could hear. It was as if the shadows were alive, shifting, growling, waiting. "Where are you?" Lisa shouted, fighting against panic rising in her throat. She took a cautious step forward, her shoes squeaking against the cold, hard floor. She reached out, sensing the shapes, the illusions clinging to the walls. They felt like thin whispers of despair that threatened to overwhelm her. "Mom! Help!" Jamie cried from somewhere in the misty darkness. His voice wavered, trembling with fear. "Please, I'm coming." She pushed forward, her hands clawing through the heavy air, seeking any hint of her son. The shadows flickered, shifting with every move she made. A sudden rattling sound echoed metal grinding against metal. A figure emerged, dark and grotesque, crawling out from a nook in the wall. It had no clear shape, just an endless swirl of darkness, its edges rippling like smoke. Lisa stumbled back, heart thumping, terror gripping her limbs. "What are you?" she forced out, dread stark in her voice. "Everything and nothing." The figure's voice was a cold hiss, slicing through the air like a blade. "You're lost, Lisa. You always have been. Don't come near me," she yelled, backing away, but it moved closer, fluidly, knitting itself back into her perception. She forced herself to breathe, focusing on Jamie. "Get away from me. Where's my son?" "Your son?" The dark thing mocked, its laughter echoing against the walls. "He is the light you cling to in this void. Yet the deeper you go, the more he slips away." Fury ignited in Lisa. "You want to take him." She lunged forward, ready to confront the entity head-on. It flickered, blurring with the flicking lights overhead. Shadows coiled around her, wrapping tighter as panic clawed at her. She could feel the wetness forming in her eyes, blurring the edges of her reality. "Look within the darkness," it taunted. "That's where the truth lies." Then she heard it again. "Mom, I'm so scared." Jamie's voice climbed higher, mingling with her heartbeat, pushing her into a manic charge toward the sound. A sudden burst of lights surrounding her cast unnatural shadows, creating monstrous forms that danced around her. She pressed further into the room, the cries ringing louder, guiding her. "Help me, Mom." Jamie's cries blended with a symphony of whispers, tugging at Lisa as if they were trying to lure her into a trap. The room warped, shadows blending into a swirling vortex. Lisa felt a pulse beneath the floor, a thrumming connection to something deeply sinister. "What's happening?" she gasped, looking around. Everything felt alive, watching her, waiting. "Mom, here." Jamie's call erupted from a darkened corner, filled with an urgency that chilled Lisa's blood. She looked, just for a moment, and saw a flickering outline of Jamie, faint but real. Everything screamed for her to rush to him. She couldn't lose him again. But the darkness had other plans. The figure elongated, snapping sharp tendrils toward her, and as they brushed her skin, ice crept into her veins. "Join us, Lisa. You're just as lost," it cooed, delighted. With a scream, she surged forward, breaking through the boundaries of her fear. "No!" As she leaped toward her son, shadows swarmed, threatening to engulf her. And at the instant their fingers brushed, the room exploded into a brilliant white light, blinding her. When the light faded, she stood alone again. A gaping maelstrom of darkness stretched wide before her. Where was Jamie? And what would she have to face next in this relentless nightmare? In the silence that followed, she felt a shudder, a low rumble beneath her feet. Something else was coming. What shape would it take? Would she lose Jamie forever? The floor trembled as the echoes of her fate intertwined with the shadows, ready to reveal secrets that shouldn't have been uncovered. The shadows stretched away, revealing only a cold, empty void. Lisa's heart raced, each pounding beat a reminder of what she could lose. The anguished silence weighed on her, thick enough to suffocate. "Jamie!" she called, desperate, voice echoing against the walls, returning to her like a taunting whisper. Somewhere in that vast nothingness, a sound cut through the faintest giggle, high and eerie. It snaked through her thoughts, wrapping around her mind, twisting it. Lisa shivered as she turned, instincts telling her something was watching from every darkened corner. She strained her ears for Jamie, but the laughter faded, replaced by something else. A drip, drip, drip like water seeping through a crack. Cautiously, Lisa stepped forward. The faint light above flickered again, casting an unsettling glow on the damp walls. Water trickled down like tears, pooling in puddles that reflected twisted faces, their expressions frozen in fright. She shuddered at the sight. "Get it together, Lisa," she whispered to herself, stepping gingerly over the puddles, their ripples distorting her reflection. Where is he? Frantic thoughts raced through her mind. Was Jamie all right? Did he hear her? "Mom," came his voice again, echoing frantically through the dark. But now it was different, deeper. It flickered, as if a radio tuning into a channel filled with static. Panic surged anew as she squinted into the darkness. "Jamie!" she cried again, louder this time, every syllable coated with desperation. This was different, something was wrong. She could feel the air around her tainting, thickening. Then she noticed it, a soft glow emerging from a crack in the wall. The light pulsed rhythmically, like a steady heartbeat, pulling her closer. As Lisa approached, her shadows began to dance more erratically, swirling around her ankles, shooting upwards like desperate hands. Suddenly, with a deafening crash, the wall exploded outward, releasing a blast of cold air that knocked her off her feet. She gasped, scrambling to regain her balance, as the ground shook beneath her. Shadows jumped and flickered, coiling aggressively, as if the darkness itself was in a fury. "No, not this again," she screamed, trying to shield herself, but the shadows lunged towards her, biting at her heels. She felt sharp nails dragging past her skin, cold as death itself. "Mom, it's too late." Jamie's voice pierced through her terror, teetering on the edge of despair. It was closer now, but laced with an urgency that chilled Lisa's very bones. "No," she screamed again, forcing herself to remain focused. "I'll find you." She pushed away the panic gnawing at her. The glowing crack beckoned, the pulse matching her racing heart. She leapt toward the light, hoping against hope. With each step, her breath quickened. The darkness shrieked, a cacophony of howls and whispers, like a storm gathering. Then, the glow intensified, casting out the shadows for a fleeting moment. She saw a figure again, small and flickering. Was it Jamie? He was reaching toward her, hands outstretched, a plea in his eyes. "Mom, help!" His voice was raw, desperate, a cry for salvation that ignited Lisa's resolve. But just as she reached out, the light flickered violently, and Jamie was swallowed whole by the darkness. Screams erupted around her, rising from the very walls. "No!" Lisa shouted, terror surging through her as she lunged forward. The shadows drew closer, wrapping tightly around her. But then silence. A dreadful stillness, as if time had stopped. Lisa's heart raced, pounding with dread. What now? What awaited her in that endless gloom? With bated breath, she strained to see through the thick black around her. Was that it? Had she lost her chance to save Jamie? The light flickered again. A promise of hope amidst the inky void, but it was fading. "Mom," a whisper slithered from the darkness, cold and echoing. Lisa's stomach lurched. This was only the beginning. What new horror awaited her just beyond that flickering light? As darkness encroached, she knew. The real nightmare was just starting to unveil its secrets. Lisa's heart thudded relentlessly, each pulse echoing the dread clawing at her insides. The room was alive with chaos, the shadows swirling like a raging storm, the flickering light a beacon of hope marred by despair. "Mom!" Jamie's voice floated through the tumult, lingering like a haunting melody that tightened around her throat. Cold sweat trickled down her spine as she strained to locate him. The shadows seemed to grow more frenzied, more desperate, wrapping tighter around her legs, tugging her back. "Hold on, Jamie. I'm coming," she shouted, echoing bravado she didn't feel. She needed to push forward, to breach the darkness that clung to her like a second skin. She could envision his face, that innocent smile twisted into panic. The pulsating beam of light drew her on. As fearful as she was, it felt like Jamie was desperately beckoning her from the other side. With each tentative step, Lisa forced herself to breathe one foot in front of the other. "Mom!" The urgency in Jamie's voice reverberated in her chest, breaking down her resolve like glass. She lunged ahead, bracing herself against the weighted darkness. As she stumbled forward, the ground trembled beneath her, once more a telling sign that time was running out. "Don't lose hope." A voice, faint yet powerful, resonated. It was as if the building itself whispered encouragement. The crack widened, and Lisa could feel the warmth radiating from within. It was a light not just seen, but felt, wrapped in tenderness that called to her heart. She reached out. "Jamie!" she cried, casting aside her fear like a coat left behind in a storm. As she dashed through the crevice, the shadows screamed in protest, slipping away even as they clawed at her heels. "Mom!" There he was. Flickers of light unveiled Jamie, his little figure standing on the other side, agonized eyes searching for her. Desperation etched deeply in his little face. "Jamie! Quick! Come closer!" His voice trembled, urgency threading through his words. With determination fueling each frantic step, Lisa surged closer, pushing past the darkness as it writhed in fury. The distance shrank. Just one more leap. She could see him now, and in that moment, Lisa gathered every last ounce of her strength. "I'm not letting you go," she screamed, launching herself toward her son. The darkness roared as if it had a life of its own, the air thickening, every shadow howling back in furious waves. But she couldn't back down, not when Jamie was within reach. Then clasp. Her hand seized his. In that heartbeat, everything shifted. Light exploded around them, banishing the shadows. The roar fell silent, replaced by a tremendous strength coursing through them. Lisa felt Jamie's warmth, the connection grounding her as she yanked him from the darkest grip. "Mom!" Jamie cried, relief flooding his tone. A bright luminescence enveloped them, tender and divine. Gone were the shadows, their screams replaced by whispers of freedom in the light. Lisa held Jamie tightly, their hearts beating in synchronicity as they absorbed the newfound warmth. The darkness thinned until it withdrew into nothingness. They stood in a bright corridor, a stark contrast to the cursed elevator that had held them captive for far too long. The cold, malevolent energy that clung to the building seemed to evaporate, replaced by peace. A sense of gratitude washed over Lisa. Her fears had nearly consumed her, but love had triumphed. "Did we win?" Jamie asked, eyes wide with curiosity, innocence regained as he looked up at her. "Yes, sweetheart," Lisa whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "We're free." In that moment, they stepped together into the light, not just as mother and son, but as survivors who had faced unimaginable horrors. It was a new beginning, a chance to heal and embrace life again, free from the shadows they had escaped as they emerged from the depths of the haunted building. Lisa took a deep breath of fresh air, feeling it fill her lungs. She had battled darkness and won, and her heart was full of hope once more. Suddenly, she realized something pressing this harrowing experience would not be forgotten. The whispers of the building, its lost souls, still echoed somewhere deep in her mind, a reminder of the power of love against the darkness. With Jamie by her side, she turned to face the sun, a warrior who had fought for everything precious. And as they walked away, hand in hand, Lisa felt the last remnants of fear dissolve behind her. Tomorrow was a new day, and she would protect what was hers fiercely. And together, they dove into the brilliance of a sun-kissed horizon, ready for whatever adventures awaited, knowing they could conquer anything together. If you found this story gripping and powerful, you need to subscribe now. Click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss any exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let us know what you thought, because we can't wait to hear from you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment. Be part of our community of true fans. Your voice matters.